Hello, folks. This is your host, Tammy Tuckey, and you are now listening to the Tiara Talk Show. We bring you rare interviews with the makers of Disney magic. Whether they be singers, actors, Imagineers, animators, they have all made their mark on the Disney name. Be sure to check out the show notes, other episodes, contests, our social media pages from Facebook to Twitter, and more on our official website at www.thetiaratalkshow.com. Are you looking to plan and book an upcoming Disney vacation? Contact the Tiara Talk Show's official travel agent, James from Destinations in Florida, by visiting destinationsinflorida.com/tiara for a free quote. The link is also included in the show notes on our website. All guest opinions are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the opinions of the Tiara Talk Show or the host. The Tiara Talk Show is not associated with the Disney Company. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. And from all of us here at the Tiara Talk Show, have a hoop-de-doo day. I'm excited to welcome this week's Tiara Talk Show guest, voiceover artist Corey Burton, to the show. Welcome, Corey.
Well, hello, once again.
I know, we spoke a couple years back on my other talk show. We were just talking about this off air. I had another talk show, and now you're on my new one, which is great. I'm so glad we had some time to talk today.
Oh, yes, in the 21st century.
Well, I first wanted to bring up something. My first episode was actually with the director Jerry Reese, who directed Back to Neverland, and you worked on this project. It's a short film for listeners who have not heard of it before. I suggest watching it on YouTube if you get a chance, with Robin Williams and Walter Cronkite, and it's about the animation process, and they use Peter Pan as an example. And if I'm not mistaken, this is actually one of your first projects that you got to work on for Disney.
For Disney theme parks, yeah. It sort of connected me with the incoming feature animation group. Kirk Wise and Gary Trousdale that was one of their first Disney animation projects. Well, they also they did the Cranium Command,
which is another project you got to work on too, as general knowledge. I love that one too.
Yes, and yeah, so I go back with Jerry. Forever. He always does superb work and is just a delightful person to work with.
He actually chose you to be one of the voices in the film as the voice of Captain Hook. And also you did some audio here and there for Robin and Walter Cronkite occasionally.
Yeah, I did all the scratch tracks for both of them. And in fact, that's one of my showbiz stories where Disney feature animation used me for years to experiment with casting ideas, because I do a lot of impressions, a lot of different style characters. So they'd call me in development to try on various voices. And for Return to Neverland, they wanted to hear how the lines sounded and how it all fit together to sort of fine-tune the lines. I was invited by the show producer, Bob Rogers, to come watch them shoot the piece on set. And I thought, okay, I'll sit in the background and I'll be an extra and watch them work. Well, I didn't know that Robin and Walter had been given the animatic, the pre-production storyboard, with video and sound, not full animation, but just the pieces to see how it all played together. So anyway, I showed up early in the morning. It was like on a weekend. It was like a Saturday or Sunday morning early, and spotted Jerry and my friend Bob Rogers, and Bob starts waving to me. And he says, "Oh, come on over here." And he was there with Walter and Robin. And he said, "Come on over here." And Okay. And I walked up and he said, yeah, Walter is dying to meet you. He's been listening to your voice for 2 months, your impression of him. I was flabbergasted. I thought, oh, no. And he couldn't have been nicer. He said, it's very nice to meet you, young man. I don't know why I even bothered showing up. You sounded exactly like me. And then, the most surreal turn of events, he suddenly looked into my eyes and he said, how did you get into doing voices for a living? And I thought, oh my God, I'm being interviewed by Walter Cronkite. Well, and as the day went on, they were mostly working on ideas with Robin because, he loved to improvise and improve things. But Walter's lines were all pretty cut and dried. And, Walter Cronkite, he does one thing. So he didn't have much to do. Now, I'm a fan of old radio and broadcasting and a fan of his. And he was just sitting by himself, kind of bored most of the day while they were setting up shots and working with Robin. And we ended up just hanging out together all day. And what a funny man. Best day of my life. And then I got to chat with Robin.
What did he think of your impersonation of him?
Well, he didn't comment directly, although he was just wonderful to me, so respectful and was a fan of the great voice actors that I was a fan of and knew and worked with. But a very touching moment in between shots, his son Zach was just a toddler at the time, I guess, and showing him the set and how things were done and what they were working on. Well, they had a VHS tape of that animatic where I had done Walter and Robin's voices. And he said, "Oh, see, this is what Daddy did. This is what Daddy is doing right now." And he had them play the animatic piece with my impression of him. His son said, "Oh, that's cool, Dad. It's funny, And Robin didn't say a word. He didn't say, "Oh, that's somebody else doing my voice, Nothing. And it was accepted as authentic enough sounding that he didn't have to make any excuses or explain. And I couldn't have been more flattered and touched.
Did you ever get a chance to voice something for Walter or Robin later on in the future?
Oh, yeah. Well, I did all the scratch lines for the genie for Aladdin. They had me also sort of interpolate the lines. It's like, where do you think Robin would go? Where do you think Robin would go with this line? Or what are the kinds of things he would say? And I was always a big fan, so I had some ideas. But I was told years later, the line at the end of the film came from my ad lib. They borrowed that line where he says, "I'm out of here. I'm out of here. I'm history," and I ad libbed, "No, I'm mythology."
Again, the list that you have and your credits is just endless. One of the main reasons I wanted to have you on the show this week is to discuss Atlantis, The Lost Empire, which is one of my personal favorite Disney animated films, came out in 2001. And you are the voice of Gaëtan Molière, a very different Disney character. I don't think we've seen anybody like him up to now.
Yeah, he was, he really sort of broke the mold for Disney in many ways. The film in general broke out of the standard protocols for Disney feature animated films. And probably one of the reasons it wasn't that well received when it first came out, it was designed to be first non-musical animated feature from Disney. But just as with Return to Neverland, I was initially just brought in on Atlantis to play around with voice ideas. My being cast in the final version, the final soundtrack as Molière, was a complete surprise. You know, I never landed the actual roles. I would just do the scratch tracks.
So when did you find out that you were officially the voice of Gaëtan Molière?
Oh, probably a year, 2 years into production. And then there was a session a couple of years in where they said, all right, now you're going to be in the finished film as this character.
Along with you, there was an all-star cast: Michael J. Fox, Cree Summer, Don Novello, Phil Morris. So many people were working on this film. And did you ever get a chance to bump into them in the studios at all while recording or getting ready to record a scene?
I would briefly encounter some in like the lobby of the soundstage at Disney. I saw, James Garner at the end of one of his sessions as I was walking in. We didn't work together. Most feature animation voice tracks are in the film business they say shot, recorded solo. I didn't meet the rest of the cast until the first screening, and then Michael J. Fox. I didn't meet him till the premiere. In many ways, it's a minor masterpiece, and I was just so proud to be a part of it. I mean, myself and Phil and the rest of the cast. After that screening, we were so excited. So you know what? We're part of a classic now, and one day I'm sure will be regarded as such. It was actually a successful film. It made good money and got overall good critical reviews. The dirt.
If there was a chance that Atlantis could be revived as a live-action film, who would you like to see play Molière?
Oh, that's an interesting question. There's some very fine character actors. Somebody like Jack Black could probably do a good job. Also thinking, although I don't know if he does accents, Richard Kind, very funny character actor, who I think could do a good job at it. That would be very nice to see something like that happen. I think it would. Me
too. I would agree.
I think
it
would work very well as a live action film. It was kind of intended to be in the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea vein initially, design-wise. Probably would be a hit right out of the box as a live action feature. It seems to me that Don Hahn might have told me, I don't know, I could just be imagining it, but he might have told me at one point that they had to cut it down from a 5-hour film because they just had so much. And they had such a great creative team of animators and storyboard artists and designers.
What is one of your favorite scenes in the film, in the completed film, that you really enjoyed?
Oh, well, especially in the recording, I loved the eating scene, the campfire scene where Molière is stuffing his face. And I love real sound effects. I just ran over to the table where they had all the snacks and things set up and said, okay, now what's going to make noise? All right, so here's some crispy cookies. Here's some celery, some carrots, a little bread. And I stuffed it in my mouth and... and I was talking and chewing and spitting all over the place. And, of course, Molière was so disappointed because he wanted the escargot.
If you could have gone to Atlantis, if it was a real place to begin with, where do you think you'd first start off exploring?
Oh, well, again, being a techno geek, I would want to I would want to go to their science and technology archive there. That's what I would have wanted to see, is how this unique lost culture's technology was developing, and all the wonders that they had formulated.
But I wanted to end the show again with my 3 Disney questions I always ask my guests. I call them the Fab 3. So we'll start with the Donald question, which is, what Disney film was one of your favorites to watch over and over again?
Oh, not to be sacrilegious to the original Disney era, but Aladdin is still one of my favorite movies of any kind of all time. I think that film is just entertaining from the first frame to the last. It's just the most terrifically fun, entertaining, perfectly produced films ever.
And our goofy question, and this is excluding any Disney characters that you have voiced in the past and presently, what Disney character do you think would be your best friend if you met them in person?
Let's see. I mean, well, of course, my mind is locked on Atlantis. I think I would be great friends with Vinny. He just has such a wonderful, positive attitude while blowing things up.
A very mellow attitude to what is really occurring, yeah.
Yeah. Well, a great sense of humor. The most important thing in life, I think.
And our Mickey question, if I asked you to name any Disney song at this very moment, what immediately comes to mind?
Oh, well, Walt's favorite, When You Wish Upon a Star.
But I have to thank you so much for coming on the show, Corey. This was a lot of fun to speak with you again because we haven't spoken in, I think, 3 years. And I love Gaëtan Molière, so I want to wish you a happy 15th anniversary.
And thank you for really, championing Atlantis as the wonderful work of entertainment that it is. And I think because of your continuing interest and support, it has a much greater likelihood of reemerging and getting the respect and love that it deserves.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Corey. We'll have to do this again sometime, but we're going to be heading off to Neverland right now.
Back to Neverland!
Oh, forgive me. I could not resist.